He's not a bat, he's a man who fights crime. And we're gonna watch him fight for a minute at a time. With John and Niall and a guest who doesn't rhyme. It's Bat Minute!
Attention, citizens of fair Gotham, and welcome once again to Bat Minute and Robin, the show that has been falling down the stairs that make up the movie of Batman and Robin. That kind of works. 1 minute at a time. I am one of your hosts, John Parker.
And here I am, the star. I'm the star. It's me, Niall McGowan.
Are you, though?
No. I am looking forward to talking about that line, though, because it's just like it brought back so many fond memories of a particular thing. But we'll get to it when we get to it.
We will. And we are joined, as always, by a guest. A very special guest. A guest you may know once again. First time this season. We are joined by the one and only Scott Carelli.
Hey.
Woo.
You can be you're our honorary Brit.
Oh.
and Irishman.
I'm honored.
It's like all the other English people we've had on are like, oh, well, I guess I'll just go screw myself then.
Yeah, we don't care about any of the other guests. They can all go burn in hell. It's fine.
Yeah, thanks for popping back on, Scott. Should I just ask up because obviously Batman Robin, very divisive movie.
Yeah.
So I am curious, what is your opinion of this movie just in general now?
It's a thing because I remember the summer that it came out. I was 12. I just turned 12 in May, and so I was like exactly the right age for this. And I just remember being so excited and people being like, excited about other movies that summer, and I'd be like, no, it's all about Batman and Robin. This is going to be the best movie of the year. You just wait. And I don't remember watching the movie and thinking otherwise, like as a kid.
Same.
But it's like most things. As you get older, you sort of go through ebbs and flows, right? Like you're a teenager in your 20s and you're like, what is this bull?
Yeah, you're too cool, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like, that's a trash movie.
Right. But now I'm like old and I don't really care. And I'm just like, it's doing exactly what it's setting out to do. And I can't fault it for that. Like when people say like it's bad, if you were like, well, what do you want different? They're just going to describe a completely different movie. And that's not what they were trying to set out to make. They were trying to make a very campy kind of like love letter to the 60s show without really understanding how or why the 60s show worked as well as it did.
But the heart's there, damn it.
Yeah, like they're trying, and like who could be mad at these sets and the costume design? I mean, honestly. It's nuts. I mean, granted, they obviously keep using the same set that they just redressed like 4 times over the course of the movie.
This one in particular.
Yes, but I still love it. Like I can't help but love it. It's very, very silly. It's not something that I revisit like on any kind of regular basis or anything. It's certainly my least favorite Batman movie, but I can't fault it. Like I really can't. I think that it's having a good time. I think everybody making it seemed to be having a good time. I think even George Clooney had a great time making the movie. It wasn't until afterward that I think he turned on the movie. But I remember watching all those behind the scenes stuff when this movie was coming out and all the jokes about cod pieces and all of that stuff. So like, everybody seemed to be having a good time making it. And then they watched the result of that good time. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, wow, that's really embarrassing. And that's too bad. Cause like, it's not is it a good movie? That's the thing. It's like, it's hard to even say, is this a good or a bad movie? Because like, is it exactly what it set out to be? I mean, I think kind of. It doesn't
fail at anything.
Right. It's like 80% of the way there. Like I said, it doesn't quite hit the 66 sweet spot in terms of like tone. But it tries, you know, it really gets close to it. It's certainly as campy as the old show. It's just not as satirical, I should say, as the old show was. The old show is smarter than people give it credit for, I think, and smarter than Joel Schumacher probably gave it credit for.
Yeah,
but
that is another thing. Actually, people always insult the '60s one. You know, people who are into just the Nolan movies and things. Oh, that '60s one was stupid. It was ridiculous. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, right. It's supposed to be very silly. Like that's the whole point.
Yeah,
it's like
and it knows
it's
it.
funny. Yeah. It's like isn't superhero stuff like stupid? It's you know, it's very silly. But
so this minute in particular though, it slightly irks me, the beginning of it, because it's like it's not silly enough, but it's also annoyingly too silly. Combined in the same moments. It's just like, oh yeah, you're doing a thing that I see what you're trying to do, but you're not doing it the right way. Kind of.
But that's the only way you can really criticize it, I think, personally, from my point of view, is you can go, well, you've not quite got it right. Like you're most of the way there.
Yeah.
You've almost hit it out of the park, but at the last second you've dropped the ball.
The problems I have with this week, I feel, are more like because Joel Schumacher brought this in like I think 2 weeks ahead of schedule and under budget. And it was just like, I feel like you could have spent those 2 weeks doing something here, Joel. You could have made this into more of a scene, but we'll get to that when we get to it, I guess.
Turning the movie in ahead of schedule. That's crazy.
That was one of his big kind of achievements that I think he kind of prided himself in the fact like Joel Schumacher, he'll get it in under budget, and before you even want it, he'll have the thing served up for you. So
for better or worse.
Yeah, it's like sometimes you can. Just, take the 2 extra weeks, man. You can do something with them at least.
Think about it. Mull it over. But we are going to talk today about minute 79. And the minute starts with some chilly booty. And it ends with a jealous bat. Jealous of a kiss.
All right, we'll get to whether he's jealous or not as well as at the end.
It's going to develop throughout the weeks.
But yeah, to jump in, though, to this minute. So we have Mr. Freeze obviously getting his freezing engine, getting ready to haul ass with it. And yeah, whole rake of Gotham's finest come charging up the little circular stairs. Spiral staircase, is that what you call that?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Mr. Freeze taking care of them with embarrassing ease, quite frankly.
Well, they're running up one at a time. I know it's a narrow staircase, but they are literally just... in a single line right next to each other, so we can just knock them down like bowling pins.
Yeah. And I feel this is my problem. This scenario here, it feels very, this for a movie made in 97, it feels very mid-90s family movie.
Yeah.
Jaunty fare, where it's like, I can imagine this same scene been in like Blank Check.
Oh, okay.
Or
right.
Home Alone 3, like one of those things of just like, oh, isn't this funny that all the cops have dominoed down the stairs, and there's this sort of kind of music in the background, and it's like, it irks me because I feel with the character of Mr. Freeze there, why isn't he like freezing the steps or doing something?
He's already
creative
done
with
that.
it?
Look at it.
But that's one of those things, like, you could utilize who you've got there. This feels, again, very much like this is Joel Schumacher going, oh, it'll save us a bit of money instead of him having to freeze the steps or do something like that. He just kicks them and they all fall down. And it's like a kind of wacky Keystone Cops moment. And it's just like, you could put a little bit more effort into making it, because now it just seems like all the cops are idiots. And
Yeah. Which they are, because, Gordon's their boss. What do you expect?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just feels like they're trying to establish a world where the cops need Batman and Robin because they're the only ones who can take care of this business. Because you don't see a lot of Batman and Robin dealing with like petty crime. Like it seems like the cops are handling that fine. I mean, mostly they don't know about that whole like motorcycle racing ring, but that's happening in town. But it seems like most petty crime they've got a handle on, and it's just like they're completely incompetent when it comes to any sort of supervillain. In terms of like the kicking them down the stairs thing, I think it's two things. I think one, it's over edited, which makes it look bad, because I feel like, these are such theatrical sets, and I think Joel Schumacher is such a theatrical director that most of the time when he's directing something, everything always feels like a stage play that is shot, with cameras. And
I love that about it.
Yeah, and I think that this is no exception, except that this Keystone Cops moment of them like falling down the stairs would work if it was part of, like, if you picture that moment happening in the corner of a set that is like a stunt show or something like that, and it's just happening in the corner of the set and is not the focus. It's just there's a fight going on the right hand of the set, and then this is happening in like the upper left corner. It plays better, but like when you shoot it and you focus on it, it like just raises the tone to a level of like it just doesn't work as well as it would have if you were shooting it like wide, I guess. And so like being that close and over editing it makes it look bad. And then in terms of like what you're talking about with not Mr. Freeze could just like freeze the spiral staircase and it would turn into a slide and they would all slide down it. I think you're right. I think there is definitely a money saving component, because then you don't just build one staircase. You have to build two staircases, one that's a staircase and one that's a frozen staircase. And you have to be able to move the two out from each other. So that's like a big expense right off the bat. But two, Arnold Schwarzenegger is playing Mr. Freeze. And I guarantee you this kicking them down the stairs thing was Arnold Schwarzenegger's idea, because like he doesn't get to be physical very much in this movie. And I wonder if that was like, what if I just, instead of using my gun for the millionth time in this movie, what if I just kicked them down the stairs? And Joel Schumacher was probably just like, yeah, you know what? That'll save us money. It'll save me arguing with you in terms of like, how to utilize you in the movie. Yeah, sure. Like, let's just kick them down the stairs and that's fine.
Well, plus he does want to look physically strong in the movie, because he doesn't get to, as you say, very much. So there's only a couple of times he does get sort of hands-on. And it's like, this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's probably there going, I got to look tough. That's my thing.
But maybe because I've got, internally though, like I've got infinite budget and like time to consider these things. But like I'll be like, well, you're in an ice cream factory, so can't he like, maybe he picks up like a nozzle and he sprays them with like whippy ice cream. And he's like, let's whip them into shape or something like that. It's like you can utilize the fact that you're in an ice cream factory. Like, have him do things with ice cream based stuff. Like, just because they do it later on, they have like one big moment where it could have been like, well, you just needed any kind of generic goop to do this joke, really. But like, you utilize the fact that you're in, ice creamville, and you can do, pick up a cherry. They bite off the stem and throw it like a grenade at them or something. Something like that,
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, this movie, despite the fact that like the sets are incredible to look at, truly, they're not utilized particularly well. Like, it really just feels like the script was written like where the scenes could take place almost anywhere. And then they build this elaborate set, and then they don't really use any of it other than it looking nice on camera, and it is weird. It's like the two things didn't really like interact with each other. Like, is it who wrote this?
That was Akiva Goldsman.
Akiva Goldsmith. Right.
Oscar,
I couldn't remember.
Oscar-winning writer Akiva Goldsman.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his first name. Like I almost wonder if he was not, like, if Schumacher didn't really work with him on what the sets would look like what would be part of the set. Like, it just feels like everything isn't really, like, the two sides of this movie aren't really like working with each other in any meaningful way.
That could be true though, because in retrospective pieces and stuff on this movie, Joel Schumacher was constantly like, if you're going to blame anyone, blame me, but this is the movie we made. This is entirely what I intended to make. And Akiva Goldsman's always the guy going like, yeah, disaster. Like, I wanted to do something different, but they were insisting it had to be campier and it had to be lighter and stuff. And like, he's always saying, like, I think that every superhero movie should be more psychological and more dark and somber and stuff. Like, he seems to be like in exactly the opposite direction, but it's a paycheck. So he's just like,
Well, you
Yeah.
do what
Okay,
they want.
yeah.
You know, they give you a brief, surely. You don't just write whatever the hell you have come up with.
Yeah.
But you can just tell it's, maybe Forever was more of a passion project because
Yeah.
obviously the script for Forever was very different from what ended up on screen. Whereas this will probably be like, I'm contracted to do it, so...
Well,
Yeah,
plus they're a
okay.
very hands-on studio, aren't they? They're not just like, go write us a movie and bring it, and cool, we'll shoot your movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like you watch Titans, and I don't want that either. Like, I don't like that tone either. So Akiva Goldsmith needs to relax.
Chill.
Yeah.
Chill.
Chill.
Actually, it's quite funny me saying that. And Niall, you mentioned just before you wanted like a little quip from Arnold. Because the draft has what I can only assume is a callback to a previous Arnold project. But it kind of doesn't make sense, but it does sort of make sense because they're in this frozen room. It goes, Freeze moves like lightning, whipping billy clubs from the holsters of 2 police, using them like disconnected nunchucks, knocking the cops unconscious in a flurry of slams and jabs. And then he turns around and says, stick around.
I see. What you need there, though, is like when they fall to the floor, their tongues are out, and then they get stuck to the ice on the floor. And then he's like, stick around.
And that would suit the tone, actually. That'd be fine. I wouldn't question that in this movie.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that will be the Predator callback. Then he's like, well, then maybe Arnie's like, I can say I'll be back 1,000,000 times, but I can't ever repeat another pun. It has to be new material every time.
He takes his art seriously. And something I like from Freeze as well, he kicks them, they go down. Like, in character, I find this very peculiar. He doesn't grab his stuff. He stands and watches them all slowly falling down the stairs.
He almost has a look of contempt. Like, he's like, I can't believe that worked. Like,
Yeah, he's like impressed with his own power. Like, huh.
yeah. And then poor Gordon's just there like, oh my God. Like, he's like, you want him to shut up and like, I'm so sorry. Like, usually they're not this bad, okay? Usually they can walk up some stairs and avoid a kick. Or at least if one guy gets kicked, they won't take out 7 other guys behind them.
Well, maybe the stairs are a little bit slippy. We're just going to assume, okay?
Yeah. I thought that, though, poor Pat Hingle, he'd have, like, flashbacks, because you're seeing guys taking a really severe tumble, because I think can't remember we ever talked about it way back in, like, season 1, but, like, Pat Hingle, he's got a real sliding doors life, where, apparently he was cast in the movie Elmer Gantry, which is like a 1960 drama about like a sleazy salesman who gets roped into being an evangelist, and he goes out and like sells God to people, and he's inherently corrupt, and it's a real condemnation of the whole selling religion to people kind of lifestyle. But once he got that role, he got trapped in an elevator and trying to free himself. He fell like 50 feet. And then let's see the list of injuries. He fractured his hip, his skull, his wrist, most of his left side of his ribs.
Jesus.
He shattered his leg in 3 places. A finger had to be amputated. And he was near death for 2 weeks. And then so they gave the role to Burt Lancaster, and Burt Lancaster won an Oscar for playing Elmer Gantry. And so it's kind of this thing like Pat Hingle, he could have been like Burt Lancaster level famous if he had, that had not happened to him.
Could have been a contender.
He genuinely could have been, but instead of a dopey police commissioner, which is what he is.
Oh, and those injuries, that's like Jackie Chan level.
Wow. Yeah,
when he
that's a guy
slides down that pole in Police Story and like breaks his back and everything.
So when Pat Hingle watching this, like, oh man, the memories are coming back now of someone taking such a severe tumble. But it's like, yeah, that must eat away at you though for like 40 odd years, particularly like when you've been promised the role of Commissioner Gordon, and then by the 4th movie you're like, I'm Chief O'Hara. That's who I'm playing here.
Well,
like,
by the first movie, it was a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first movie he had a couple of, I'm in charge here, not Carl Grissom. There was a few moments of like, it's Commissioner Gordon, and then from Returns onwards, yeah, staunchly like this guy is an afterthought to everybody involved.
It really is stunning where we started and where we've gotten in this franchise.
It's especially because they consider it, I'm going to use that made up word, listeners, a quadrilogy. They considered it, these are a 4-piece. But there's no connection between them except for him and Alfred.
I just think it's really funny that, like, it's just history repeating itself in terms of, like, you had Batman, it's a massive hit, and they're like, hey, come back, do another one. You're going to have some creative control. He does it. They don't like it. And then he comes back to talk about the third one, and they're like, oh, look at the time. We're going to go do something else, and then invite somebody else. Joel Schumacher comes in, makes a Batman movie. It's a huge hit. And they're like, hey, why don't you come back? You're going to have more creative control. And then they do it. And then he's like, hey, so how about talking about a fifth one? And they're like, look at the time. And I mean, it's literally like the same story twice.
Oh, God, yeah. That probably soured them on giving anybody creative control ever.
Yeah.
Oh, it's happened again. There is one other thing in the draft that is kind of silly. So going back from you going dark, it goes, the cops are warming back into action. Draw guns, fire, bullets bouncing off Freeze's armor of ice, ricocheting into the walls. And then Freeze just pipes up saying, Superman, eat your heart out. Okay.
Maybe they thought one Superman reference in the movie is enough. Like,
yeah, it feels like there are other superheroes in the DC universe. Like I only know Superman. All right? I know Batman. I know Superman.
Plus, they're thinking about boring moviegoers who don't know that. They know Superman. They know Batman. Who else would they know?
Yeah.
Could you imagine just the indignity of like Warner Brothers letting Tim Burton like make his Nicolas Cage Superman movie only to like force him to team up his Nicolas Cage with George Clooney's Batman in like a Batman Superman movie?
Oh my God. Yeah, I need to see that. Somebody at least do like a mock-up of it, do like a deep fake.
That seems to be like that. There's that draft of Superman Lives that Kevin Smith had out there.
Yeah.
There is a scene with Batman, and it is this eternal question. It's like, would it have been Keaton? Would it have been Clooney? Would Burton have been able to go like, no, I know who my Batman is. That's the guy. Right. Or would it have been studio going like, we got a Batman movie just out. We know who the character is, and it ain't Michael Keaton anymore. Plus, even Keaton himself be like, I'm not doing.
At the time, he wouldn't have wanted to do it, I don't think.
Yeah, well, yeah, back in '97, he probably be like, no, like, I'm Ray Nicolette now in 2 other movies.
Right.
But speaking of Batman, though, he's still in a tight spot. Appropriate enough for George Clooney. We're in a tight spot with Bane here. I have to say, last week, I think I mentioned that this is like the closest we get to like a visual reference to Bane breaking Batman's back, like straining him over this staircase and stuff.
Yeah.
And actually, in doing a little bit of research, the framing of him in this position is insanely similar to I think it's Batman 344. From like the early 80s, where there's a whole story arc that they actually borrow a lot from in this movie with Poison Ivy, spreads over several issues. And Poison Ivy has an underling called Ivor, who is a hulking man-plant beast who has been made that way by a plant-based serum, very like Bane. And there's a bit, he literally grabs Batman behind, and that shot of Clooney like going, gah, with his, back arched and the one hand under his chin and the other one from behind, framed near identically the same way. So I am kind of like, I would have assumed like that's the closest you're ever going to get to Bane breaking Batman's back in this movie. Like, and then Bane that's what everyone knows him from. Why wouldn't you reference it? But now I'm like, I think they might have been actually going for that. Like it could have been just like a little visual nod to that comic book, or it could have been neither. Or it could have been both. You can never tell with these things. And then, until they flat out say that's what it was.
In general, I think there's just like too many DC characters sort of like named and like wasted in this movie, just in general. Because like, why can't Bane just be that guy from that arc in the comics? Like, why does he need to be Bane? Like, it's very, it's just like kind of pointless. I don't know. It just feels like Bane was a very popular character in the mid 90s, and they're like, oh, let's put him in a movie. But then it's just funny because it's like, well, like Harley Quinn's the one that everybody was clamoring for to be in one of these movies, not Bane.
Well, that's a good question for you, Scott, though, because I know you're a comic book guy. And like the legacy of Nightfall, obviously, in the 90s, they were really trying to make it like, this is the thing. Bane is the villain. He's the biggest thing to happen to Batman since Batman was created. And nowadays, Nightfall doesn't have the kind of a lot of nostalgia for it. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's kind of dopey. It's like, I actually really like it because I grew up, like, we had the graphic novels in the house, so that was one of like the Batman stories I'd get to revisit time and time again. But I know a lot of people are like, nah, Nightfall, not so much. But where do you stand in the whole, like, Bane as a character and that concept of, like, let's break Batman's back and mess him up for a while and stuff?
I'm not into it. I don't know. He's like the problem with the way that people write Batman villains is like everyone wants to write his Moriarty, and so he's just like his whole gallery is like oops all Moriartys at this point. and it's just a little like Joker's is Moriarty, no Riddler's is Moriarty, no Ra's al Ghul's is Moriarty, no Bane's is Moriarty, and it's just like it gets exhausting at a certain point because it's just the same character in a new wrapper every time, and it's like I don't know. It's why I like things like the Quarter Owls so much, because they are very different in terms of like their approach and the types of stories you can tell when Batman is going up against them. It's just a very different thing. All of those other characters, they're just telling variations of the same story of just like, I'm your ultimate villain. I'm going to break you either physically, emotionally, or both. And then you're going to come out the other side stronger and be Batman again at the end of all of this. And it's just like, I get tired of the same thing over and over and over again.
It's tedious, isn't it? Like, I'm not knocking the whole of Batman, don't get me wrong, but I get sick of it sometimes.
Yeah.
We've seen it. It's been done.
Should clarify while you were here, Scott. Something little mistake I made earlier in the season when I was saying that it's a bit ironic that it seemed to be a bit of between DC and Marvel competitiveness and like ripping each other off, basically. Where I mentioned like, oh, it's weird that they have this serum called Venom, in that. Obviously, you had your black suit story arc in Spider-Man in the 80s and created the character of Venom. And I was saying, like, oh, in the early 90s, then they had a great story arc with Batman where he becomes, before Bane's ever introduced, they introduced the concept of Venom, where Batman becomes addicted to this performance-enhancing drug called Venom, and it makes him progressively more deranged and angry, and he has to wean himself off it, and it's a whole big thing of like, wow, Batman went crazy from like a power surging drug that he had. And I was like, oh, and then it was called Venom, and then within the blacks, the concept of what we know, the origin of Venom, the Marvel character, to be very, very similar. But someone in the listener's cave did point out, like, in the comic origins, that is not the origin of Venom. That's a product of the 90s television program. And I was getting all muddled up in my head. It's like, that's perfectly correct. Although maybe the 90s TV program were taking it from the Batman comic of like, oh yeah, because it's all weirdly interconnected with, anger-inducing, but also performance-enhancing drug, and the name Venom been bandied about and stuff. But while you were here, Scott, because you spent a whole movie talking about the black suit and Venom and whatnot, I just wanted to clarify that. Has been like, that was my mistake, but there you go. Like, it's
yeah.
It was,
that's all well and good, but it's been retconned, and now it's exactly like the animated series in the comics, and so I would hold no ill will against you getting that wrong, because the comics decided it had gotten it wrong and changed it. So
yeah, it's fun. Well, these things rip each other off so much all the time anyway, because obviously we're now in the midst of like, Venom: Let There Be Carnage has come out.
Right.
And if you go back to the origin of Carnage, Cletus Cassidy as a character, like Eric Larson, the guy who drew that original, comic with him in it, was like, oh yeah, he's the Joker. Like, it's just, I did a picture of the Joker, but he has red hair and normal colored skin. Like,
right.
That's the entire character of Cletus Cassidy. So it's like, yeah, these things are just so, it's all, and there's a whole thing with I think there was a Spider-Man Batman crossover comic at one point where the Joker and Carnage teamed up, because people were like, Carnage's philosophy is like, the world is like, life is meaningless, and the Joker's philosophy is like, life is a joke. So like, these guys will work great together and stuff. And I think at the end of that, they ended up in like, no, the Joker was like his plans were too complicated for Carnage, because he just wants to kill people all the time and stuff.
Yeah, the Joker's always got a scheme going rather than carnage, so to speak.
I think he ends up saying at one point, like, I'm the Orson Welles of crime, and you're the David Hasselhoff to Carnage, which is like, that's a line I'll stick with you throughout time.
Wow.
That's amazing.
They should have that up in the poster, though, just like, introducing the David Hasselhoff of crime. Dash the Joker.
Oh, but so in the minute, where were we? Oh, yeah, they were fighting. Batman is finally getting some offensive moves in here. It's like a proper wrestling fight, this, though. It's like it's a horse fight, by God. And even Bane does a move that looks like, this is only for the like 5 wrestling fans who listen. It does a move that looks like Lance Archer's Blackout. It's this flipping thing. And I was like, Lance Archer could make a good comic book villain.
Yeah.
He's really cool. And he's got a really unique look, actually. He's got like, he calls it a murder hawk. It's like a mohawk of braids. So it's like a giant braided mohawk that goes halfway down his back. Like it goes like down to his butt. And it's red. It's like, oh, this is cool. He looks like a comic book character already.
There's even like a little element when this brief shot you get at like 18 seconds when you have that cut back to Batman where Bane's got his hand like, gripping his chin. And you can tell that the veins are drawn on.
Yeah, you
like
can probably see it. But is that because we're watching it from like a Blu-ray rip now?
Yeah.
I don't know, man, because it seems like this movie would be like, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, the veins are,
Would we have
it's for
questioned
kids.
that on VHS?
I don't know. It's such a brief shot. It is, it's hard to tell. But here it is really glaring. It's just like, it almost looks like he's wearing like gloves.
Yeah.
It just doesn't look right. It's so jarring.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bane just looks like this big. He has the kind of muscles that feels like if you poked him, your finger would go in. Like it's just, there's no solidity to him at all.
Yeah. No, it's all bulk and no tone.
Yes.
And it doesn't look great and it's not intimidating. I mean, granted, like, I'm sure if I just like ran into this guy in a bar and he wanted to kick my ass, I would probably be like, "Oh yeah, okay, you're intimidating." But in like cinematic language, I just don't find him particularly intimidating. He reminds me of the type of guy that would walk up to Arnold Schwarzenegger at the beginning of a Terminator movie and he would, wreck him and steal his clothes. Like that's the vibe of the guy playing Bane to me.
The Terminator going out in Bane's outfit then.
Yeah, right.
Chastity belt and gimp mask.
Yes. I need to see that, please. But that's why bodybuilders do what they do. It's like they don't look that way all the time. I mean, they always look buff, don't get me wrong, but when they're getting ready for a competition, it's like, right, I need to look as appealing as possible. It's not about at that level. It's not about the actual power. It's the essence of the power. It's like I want to look like I'm strong.
Right.
Very different thing.
Yeah, that's when they start doing that vascular stuff, like Hugh Jackman would do before he would have a berserker rage scene in one of the Wolverine movies, where he just like wouldn't drink water for 48 hours.
That's what they do. It's crazy, isn't it? But that's the thing, because Jeep Swenson, who plays Bane, incredibly strong person, unbelievably strong. But as you say, you look at him and you're not like, oh my God, his body.
Yeah,
like,
right.
It looks weird, like in a kind of freaky way.
Yeah.
He just no surprise that he died shortly after this movie came out because his heart couldn't take it. It just looks unhealthy level of muscle. It's not impressive. It's more like, dude, you need to. I don't know if you can reverse this. I think you've gone too far, but whatever you're doing, stop doing it and try to dial this way back. But
yeah.
Although one thing, because Bane does seem to get taken out with there's a little bit where he punches a snowman. Batman manages to dodge a punch. Couldn't help but notice that the snowman looks very much like Jack Frost. Michael Keaton, vehicle. One of those little dig at Michael Keaton is like, yeah, Bane punching his goddamn head in. But then George Clooney actually turned down the role of Jack Frost to play Batman. So,
wow.
I kind of also want them to have while he's doing that, there's also a picture of a saint, and he also wrecks that. So going through all the other Batmans, Val Kilmer's getting taken on, or there's an actual Iceman there for a Top Gun thing. It's Bane also wrecks the Iceman too.
Oh, that would be great.
Is it just me, or did they spend so much money on the Mr. Freeze and bat suits that there wasn't a lot of money left over for Poison Ivy and Bane. Because, like, you know, I think, I mean, look, the Poison Ivy suits are iconic, but they're also, like, as soon as you get close to them, you're like, oh, they're kind of like Spirit Halloween-y, aren't they?
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, they look like those high-end costumes you get at the costume shop. The ones you pay
the
a
ones
little
that
bit of
cost like
money for.
$120 or something. Yeah. Yeah.
It is very much telling now because you can see like the highlights in Ivy's wig.
Yes.
Like when she's, you know, you can see those pink streaks and stuff going through it. It does look much more wig-like than it has previously. Yeah. I know they had a whole thing where like, oh, her hair develops throughout the movie, so it starts getting in more and more colors and stuff. And it's like, well, and I remember too when I was drawing the logo for this season, I was trying to work in those pink highlights because Ivy's hair makes the U in Batman, and it doesn't show up in like once you have it at a distance, like you can't really pick it up, so it ended up taking it out in the end. But yeah, it does look more like, oh, you could pop into Smithy's and get this as a wig, you know. So it might cost you a bit, but it's more costumey than it is organic. Yeah. But at the same time, with this movie, it could be like that was the intent. You know, it's supposed to look a bit.
Could be, especially considering how often she like switches gears in terms of like which character she's playing. Yeah. It's I mean, I'm sure you've always brought up the Catwoman connection, or like, you know, in terms of like how it's basically the same thing, only worse. And it is you know, it's really saying something when it's just like you're copying that, but then it's like you're really half-assing on every aspect of it, whereas like you see like Catwoman in Batman Returns and it's just like you made an absolutely iconic costume and it looks incredible and she hated wearing it, but like she did it because she's like, I know I look amazing, whereas this really just feels like all of her suits just look like she's very, very comfortable. I mean, they could be Jim Janice, you know.
We need these tighter, damn it.
I don't know.
We do get though, because Bane gets massive clunking pipe to the head, takes him
Let
out.
off some steam, Bane.
I don't know if you guys in America, do you get, you know, when you get like soft serve ice cream, do you get a flake in top? It's like a chocolate bar over here called a flake, and people always jam it in the top of ice creams.
I don't know what that is. No.
It's just it's a chocolate bar, but it's so flaky. Like if you bite into it, it's just going to disperse.
Yeah, it crumbles into pieces, doesn't it? It's
But they put it in like, it's a kind of a standard over here of like, yep, you got a soft serve ice cream, you put a flake on the top. But I kind of wanted Batman to have like a giant flake that he smashes over Bane's head and just like crumbs go everywhere.
That'd be great.
But yeah, then we get the Robin trying to get himself back together, and Ivy's instantly back in for the kill
with full porno soundtrack.
Yeah, oh yeah, I love that. As soon as like she's on the scene again, just like brr, 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 brr. She does that weird hand thing she keeps doing too. There's a number of times in this movie where Poison Ivy has to suddenly stop, and she just puts up both hands as if like, I don't know if she's trying to look like a flower or something, but like these are the petals coming out the side. So stop.
I think she's just being weird. She's just being like, peculiar. You know, David Lynch with his hand.
It looks like a kind of weird cactus move or something like that, but it's probably nothing.
No, you're deranged, but I love it.
But yeah, so now she starts coming on again really hard on Robin. I'm starting to wonder though, like, you think throughout the movie the idea is that her powers will grow, and you know by the end she'll be like she's controlling the plants and all this kind of business. Where at the beginning she was just like a woman, and this now is like she's having to blow more love dust in his face, and she's already done it. Like within the same scene. And previously in this movie, she love dusted a whole room of people and had them eating out of the palm of her hand for like a good 2 or 3 minutes, you know, screen time.
Yeah.
Now it's almost like the way she keeps having to do it is like, are her powers diminishing in some way where she has to just keep constantly topping it up? It's like,
well, yeah,
I think they're just building an immunity to it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Plus, they are now conscious of what she's doing, which gives you a kind of mental immunity to it. Because you're like, she's doing something evil. God damn. But then the more she sprays you know.
This kind of reminded me of Men in Black, though, where it's just like, you're going to give him brain cancer with that stuff. You know, it's constantly flashing thing in him.
That's the twist.
It's like every 2 seconds, it's like blowing more love dust at him. It's like, oh, God damn it, get it out of my face.
I love the way she tries to seduce him as well, you know, by saying, you know, he should be the star. And she
No,
uses very
that was-
suggestive language when she says, after all, I can see it now, Robin's own big, bright signal in the sky. Emphasis on the word big. It's very, very sexual language.
Note that she uses the term "the shadow of the big bad bat," which will come up again in a few minutes as being like, oh, so there's a reason that she said those exact words and stuff. But yeah, weirdly enough, in the script, she doesn't say "you're the star," and the way she says it, "you're the star," like it's almost definitely just me. But it really brought to mind "hold me, thrill me, kiss me, kill me."
Oh, okay.
Because she borderline could just say, she's saying in the same cadence. She could say, like, you're a big smash. You wear it like a rash. You're a star. Because that was the big hit single out of that movie. Well, one of the big hit singles out of that movie. And like, I wonder if Uma Thurman, was she like, throw it in as a slight intertextual nod to Batman Forever to have like a lyric from the song in there.
God, I hope that's what it is.
It's because it's not in the script. It's not in the novelization. It seems to be that was on the set. So it could have been that she was having a bit of fun by throwing that in there. But although we talked about obviously that song quite a bit in the end credits in particular last season. I don't know if we ever brought up, because I was stunned when I read it, that song was nominated for a Razzie.
Wow.
And it was the only thing in Batman Forever that was nominated for a Razzie.
Really? Because I'm not a fan of the band, but it's not a bad song.
Oh, I people who listened to last season will know I friggin' love that song. Don't like U2. I don't mind U2, but I don't really like them.
Yeah.
But that song has it's just, baked into me of like summer of 95, Batman
Yeah, but
Forever coming
even
out.
removing yourself from the nostalgia, that's not a bad track.
Yeah.
It doesn't
so
excite me, but it's not like I'm not offended by it.
I was astounded that it was just like, Razzie nominated song.
Yeah.
And like, for one, anyway, fuck the Razzies in general,
Yeah.
because they're just terrible. But two, like, that's the only thing. If you're like, I would say Batman Forever doesn't deserve any Razzie nominations, because I'll just
But if you're
defend
gonna.
that movie to the death. But like, if you're gonna have them, like, that's the only thing that gets them.
Not Tommy Lee Jones. Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
But it didn't win. That was the year of Showgirls. Those Showgirls got everything.
Plus, is it
That was
winning
like-
or is it losing?
That's the problem with the Razzies, is that's what happens every year. It's like, I don't know who's voting on the Razzies, but like I feel like it's just one guy with a grudge.
Yeah, they always feel
because, like,
mean-spirited to me.
they're extremely mean-spirited, and they're not fair. Like it's always that like one movie wins everything, sweeps every Razzie every single time. And it's just it's a I might be saying that the Razzies are possibly not legitimate. I don't know.
What? Scandal breaking on the air, people. Let's investigate. Send some cops down there to HQ.
Yeah. See, I wouldn't have agreed with it, but now I have been seeing that they've took down my poor hold me, thrill me, kiss me, kill me. No, the hell with that whole goddamn ceremony.
I like this bit as well. Ivy leans in to kiss Robin, but then Batman, he's having none of it. It's almost like, to me, he's going, no, stop, don't kiss her. Kiss me, Dick, kiss me.
I do like, it is a literal dick blocking.
Yeah.
As it were.
Are all of George Clooney's lines in this movie ADR? Because I feel like everything he says is recorded in, like, it's almost like he gave too much of a performance on set, and like Joel Schumacher is like, hey, I need you to come back in and I need you to bring your performance down to a 3 across everything.
Just be boring instead.
Just be as boring as possible.
I think actually what you might not be entirely wrong, because there is something in the making of, they're talking about like, oh yeah, sound problems on set. And apparently, like, an extortionate amount of this movie is ADR. Like, there was a lot of stuff they had to loop back in, so you might not be wrong with that.
It wouldn't surprise me, because we've criticized his performance quite a lot, and that might be the reason. Because he's doing it in some, sound booth.
Yeah. But yeah, so then we have Ivy once again moving in for the kill. Batman beginning to save the day. In this scenario, but you guys, anyone, like, I'm noted out for a minute. I was going to say 47, 79. That's not even close to 47.
Jesus. No, I'm all done.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it for me.
Well, we'll head off into the dark, dark night. Scott, would you like to tell people where you can be found online or promote anything that you're working on at the moment?
Oh yeah. So when is this airing? When is this due to air?
Oh,
12
it'll be
weeks?
it'll be probably January, thereabouts.
Oh,
maybe.
okay. Okay. So I have a podcast called Franchisography. It is a podcast about film franchises, and it's sort of my way of continuing doing a movies by minute podcast, or at least my style of a movies by minute podcast. But only a movie at a time instead of a minute at a time.
Much more sensible.
Much more sensible. But yeah, we've done miniseries on Men in Black. We've done the Scream franchise. Niall was on our episode for Scream 3. It's a really fun episode of Franchisography.
Yeah,
I'm
had a great time.
I'm hoping to get Jonathan on very soon. But we did X-Men, the entire X-Men franchise. We did Spy Kids. That was a fun season. And we just wrapped up, by the time you're hearing this, our Wes Anderson live action films of Wes Anderson miniseries. And now I think we're doing The Matrix. I think that's what we're on currently. And we've got stuff lined up for the rest of this year that I'm really excited about. So yeah, I co-host that with my buddy Nick Jimenez, who I did Back to the Future Minute and Cornetto Minute with, and it's a really good time. Every episode is like somewhere in the vicinity of like an hour and a half to like 2.5 hours typically, and we just talk about the development of each film in a franchise and how it correlates with the story of the making of this and the development of the making of the franchises, and then we sort of break down the movie and talk about it scene by scene, and what they were thinking when they made it, and we talk about the mistakes and the positive stuff, and it's just I think it's a lot of fun, and highly recommend everybody check it out. I've never been more proud of a podcast, so check it out.
Oh, that's high praise for your work there. That's your most proud moment in podcasting. Whoa, holy crap.
Yeah.
I love that. And I need to listen to this Matrix one. I've just rewatched them all. And then I got so into rewatching them again. I moved on to Sense8 that they made. I'd never seen that before either. I've gone on a Wachowski binge, god damn it. Do I need to rewatch Cloud Atlas though? Maybe not. I don't know. It was okay. It was fine.
Let's at least go for, I don't know, because it's pre-Matrix, but Bound is like a genuinely great movie, but it's always like, it's like the weird film noir thing they made before that.
Yeah, that
doesn't
gets
count
forgotten.
as part of their ouvre a lot of the time. Because people think of it from like Matrix onwards.
Even I do. Yeah, I completely forgot about that movie. There you go. There's another one to put on my list. Well, check all of that out and come and speak to us as usual. Facebook at the Bat-Minute Listeners Cave, Twitter at Bat-Minute, and then Instagram. We're on all of them. Just look us up. We come up immediately. And join us again on Wednesday for more exciting Bat-Minute action.
Next time, holy soft serve somersault. The Caped Crusader turns Captain Cockblock and bat-splains Ivy's hemlock liplock, all before giving a thirsty teen titan a hell of a knock. But as the boy would-be Lothario plops into a puddle of pistachio, what damage will this dessert dust-up do, to the dynamic of our most beloved duo? We bask in some Baskin-Robin on Wednesday, loyal listeners. Same Bat Pod, different Bat Minute.
We'll be back.